Good morning and welcome to Returning to Spirit. My name is Rachel and I will be one of your co-facilitators in Returning to Spirit over the next 4 days. So a little bit about me. I am a white settler from the Haldimand Tract. So that's Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral Territory in what is now known as the Grand River Watershed. And I currently live in the lands of Anishinaabeg Nation, specifically Nipissing First Nation, right on the shores of Lake Nipissing. And this is part of the Robinson-Huron Treaty. So I'm striving to be in good relation with all of our Anishinaabe folks here and to step into my responsibilities as a treaty person. So I'm very excited to share with you about Returning to Spirit. I've been journeying with RTS for the last 8 years now. Just discovered that it's been that long already. And it's been incredibly powerful in my own life. It's been a catalyst for me where I've had breakthroughs in my understanding of myself and where I hold myself back. And so it's offered me tools to work with as I continue to ground in the spirit of who I am. So everything we do in RTS is very intentional. And so as we come together and we build community, we really want to start off and end our days in a good way. We want to do that through ceremony. And so, whether we're in the Indigenous room or we're in the non-Indigenous room, we're going to start with either a song or a prayer. In the Indigenous room, they might start with a smudge. And we're going to invite your participation in that. And recognizing here in the non-Indigenous room, we have a lot of diversity. We may have some folks who identify as Christian, some who are Buddhist, some who are atheist or agnostic. And we want to welcome that diversity of expression in how you want to bring us together in community in a good way. So whether you want to share a poem or a song or a quote that's meaningful to you, we'd love to offer this space for you to start us off in a good way together. Would anyone like to share? Okay, well, since it's day one, I also brought something. And I'm going to start us off with a quote. This is by one of my mentors. His name is Parker Palmer, and this is from a book called A Hidden Wholeness. He uses the word soul, but I'm going to replace that with the word spirit in this quotation here. The spirit is generous. It takes in the needs of the world. The spirit is wise. It suffers without shutting down. The spirit is hopeful. It engages the world in ways that keep opening our hearts. The spirit is creative. It finds a way between the realities that might defeat us and the fantasies that are mere escapes. All we need to do is to bring down the wall that separates us from our own spirits and deprives the world of the spirit's regenerative powers. Thank you. So now that I've sort of introduced myself and we've started out in ceremony, it's time for us to get to know each other. So I want to invite us to do 3 things here. We're going to go around the circle and we're going to share our name. We're going to share where we're from, and we're going to share an intention that we have for this week together. So I'd already shared a little bit about myself, but I haven't shared about my intention for the week. So I'll start you out with that. And then we'll go around the circle here. So as I said, my name is Rachel, and I'm now from North Bay, which is Nipissing First Nation lands. And my intention for this time together as a facilitator is to hold space for each of you on your journey, and to also hold space and trust in the process that we're going to be walking through together with Returning to Spirit. And to do that while bringing my own authenticity and my own self to this work. Because as a facilitator, I'm still engaging in the work. It's something that I strive to live into every day. And so holding space for myself to show up and to do my own processing, while I'm also trying to hold that space for each of you and your journeys. So let's go around the room and let's share who you are and what your intention is for the week. Excellent, thank you. So next, something that we will do every day is we will greet each other. This is a practice of giving and receiving welcome, and another way of building community together. So we're going to invite you to stand up and mingle and go around the room and make sure that you have greeted everyone. It can be hugging people, exchanging a few words. It can be shaking hands as you're getting to know folks. It can be exchanging an elbow or a fist pump, a bow, whatever feels comfortable for you. But the opportunity here is for you to exchange a few words and make sure that you're greeting everyone. So I'm going to invite you to do that now. Okay, thank you everyone. I'll invite you to take your seats again. Okay, great. So now I want to spend some time introducing you to the core concepts in the Returning to Spirit model and talk you through a little bit about what we're going to do in this program together. So first of all, Returning to Spirit is based on the philosophy that we are all born with an incredible spirit. And we come into this life sort of all shiny and new, and our families may do the best they can, but over time we get sort of conditioned by society, and things happen to us in our lives, and we develop ways of coping that try to protect us but end up covering up the spirit of who we are. So here you can see this white here represents, and there's a sphere behind here, the spirit of who we are. And over time, we develop things that are in front of the spirit of who we are that are ending up to protect us. So we call this our stuckness model. And so we're going through life and we're not able to shine all of our light in the world. We've developed coping mechanisms, we've developed ways of being that cover up the purity of who we are. And so this course is all about learning what are the things that we have in front of the spirit of who we are. And part of the reason that we start here is because, yes, we're a reconciliation model. However, in order to be able to reconcile with others, we need to come from this place of spirit, of integrity, of who we really are. And we believe that reconciliation is about you with you with others, and you with life. And so part of what we do in this training together is we develop a language and a process and a bunch of tools that can help us to return to who we truly are, in order for us to be able to express in our purity how we want to move forward in this life, so that we're not triggering one another, so that we're not coming in with blame and shame, so that we can actually have authentic conversations and we can move forward in life in an empowered way. And so we actually have a number of promises that we make to you that are part of our model together. And what this course is actually all about is discovering where we each give up our power, and don't really express ourselves in the fullness of who we are, and what keeps us from having personal power, in order to learn how to have personal power showing up in each of our lives. So our promise is that we're going to be talking about all of these things. At the same time, we want you to know what this is not. Sometimes it's easier to define what we're going to do by talking about what we're not going to do. Okay? So what this isn't, well, this isn't psychology. We're not going to get way laid down into a whole bunch of theory here. This is not religion. We're not coming in with a bunch of dogma, though there's a philosophical underpinning in a lot of the work that we do. This isn't education. It's not about right or wrong. It's really about self-exploration. This isn't about therapy. We're not trained counselors. We're not here to delve into all of the trauma that's happened into your life and help you sort that out in that way. Although a lot of the group processes that we're facilitating will actually feel pretty therapeutic. This is not cultural teachings. So although our program has come from Indigenous and non-Indigenous folks committed to working for reconciliation, and it's grounded in things like the 7 sacred teachings, the 7 grandfather teachings, which emanate from Anishinaabe culture. And there will be elements when we're talking about Indigenous cultures. This is not an educational model where we're going to tell you this is what reconciliation means and you need to copy down these answers and you're going to be tested on this and it's all about mastering concepts. Not at all. It is about exploring our relationships, and we see this as very relational work. So there will be cultural teaching shared, but this isn't about trying to learn about Indigenous culture explicitly. It's about developing a language for doing this relational work together. This isn't about fixing yourself. Again, if we're returning to this stuckness model, at the heart of our philosophy is that we all came into this life with beautiful spirits. There's nothing wrong with us. And the things that we've done to try to protect ourselves, it's not about fixing them, but it's about being able to express more of the fullness of who we are. So it's about unleashing our potential. It's about stepping into a more empowered way of being in the world. It's not a magic bullet. This is also, it's going to take some heartfelt self-reflection. It's going to be a process of learning how to apply some of these tools in your life. And it's not actually about changing you. It's about expressing more of the fullness of you. It's not about surviving and developing survival or coping skills. It's actually about recognizing what those might have been and unlearning. Now, we will talk about the past a little bit as a way of starting to understand what some of the things are that prevent us from expressing the fullness of who we are. But it's not about rehashing every traumatic thing that's happened to us in our life, but it's about understanding what our way of survival is, what are the things that have shaped our concept of who we are, that sort of cover up and protect us from the spirit of who we are when we don't feel safe expressing that in the world. And so, let me then tell you a bit more about what this truly is. So, this workshop is actually all about you. And it's about seeing yourself in life. So, you're going to be taking a profound look at who you are and understanding what makes your life meaningful. We're going to also understand that each of us is wired in particular ways, and we'll discover more about how we're wired, and especially when we're in places of conflict in our life. What are the things that we do when we're trying to cope and trying to protect ourselves? But how does that actually hinder us from expressing the fullness of who we are, the true spirit of who we are? So it's very exciting. It's also vulnerable, tender work. And so we're going to commit to a number of things together in order to create a safe environment for us to do this exploration. And at the same time, I hope that it will be a powerful catalyst for you. So in order for us to show up in this work together in a good way, there are a couple of requirements. Not a lot. You see, there's only 5 things on this list. But these are the things that we will have to step into in order for us to have a meaningful time together, in order for us to be successful in this tender work of returning to the spirit of who we are. So first of all, this is a participatory workshop. If we aren't participating, we won't get much out of it. It's really important that we come with an open heart and an open mind, and that we are willing to engage and to discuss. It'll be challenge by choice, but we really want to invite your active participation in this workshop. It also requires you to step into responsibility. And I'm going to talk a bit more about what we mean by responsibility in just a minute. But we are each responsible for our actions, for our thoughts, for our behaviors, and for showing up in a good way here, being on time, all of these things. No one can do it for you. We each have to step into our own responsibilities in order to have a really meaningful time together. The next thing that is really important is that there is choice in everything. So we're going to be inviting participation, but it is also your choice how you choose to engage with the materials and what you want to take from this workshop. No one can force you to be here. You know, sometimes people show up and it's their employer who's invited them to be here, and they may not feel like they have so much of a choice. However, we can always choose whether or not we're going to be open, or whether or not we feel like we already know the things that are going to lead us to have this meaningful life. But there are nuggets here for everyone, and the more we choose to be open and to engage, the more there's an opportunity for us to step into our healing and to step into the fullness of who we are. We invite everyone to come with an open heart and mind, because there are going to be some concepts that we introduce to you that may be different from some of the language that you've heard other places. And so part of what we're going to invite is for you to disrupt some of your ways of thinking about things, to explore new ways of understanding yourself and others and coping mechanisms. And finally, we want to invite you to bring your own intentionality and your own willingness in being here, because that's going to lead to a beautiful experience for you. And the more you share of yourself, the more that can actually catalyze aha moments in other people. And so, you know, we're going to invite a little bit of vulnerability as you feel safe, and as we commit to holding one another in a good way in this space together. So, I'm going to circle back on this concept of responsibility here. Whoops, there it is. Because responsibility is something that we have thought a lot about in this program. And this is really at the heart of the RTS model. So when we talk about responsibility, we talk about a way of being in life that accepts that we can't change the past, we can't change the things that have happened to us. We can't change the things that have happened here in Canada either. And yet, we take ownership that what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen or can happen in our lives is ours to complete. You know? So this means that, you know, if I want a career in education, I'm a certified teacher, but I've been too scared to actually do classroom teaching for a long time. If I want to be a teacher, it means that I have to step into responsibility for applying for jobs. And it means that I need to step in responsibility for putting myself out there and trying new things in life, as an example. And that's part of the journey I'm on right now. And it's only for me to complete that, only for me to step into that. I can't blame other people for the fact that I'm not a teacher if I'm not applying for work, even if I have those skills, right? Another thing about responsibility is that it is void of blaming making wrong or burdening other people. And at the same time, it's not about self-aggrandizement or self-praise, right? So if I am taking responsibility for my life, it means it's not someone else's fault that I don't have a teaching job yet, or it's not a manager's fault that we didn't gel in our last workplace, or it's not about making the other person wrong. There could be many complex things that are going on in conflict, but if I'm only going to push all of the blame onto the other person, that means that I'm stepping into a place of victimhood, and I'm hiding behind all of the things that I'm making wrong and all of the stories I have of other people, instead of expressing the fullness of my spirit here. So responsibility also connects us to you, to others, and to life. That's this model here, right? And so it's reconciliation isn't some concept out there. If we come from a place of self-responsibility, it means that we can have an empowering relationship with ourselves. We can have a relationship of fulfillment in the lives that we're living. Sure, there's still going to be challenges at times, but we can feel like we're actualizing our potential. And it means that we can have the most meaningful and collaborative and connective relationships with other people. So when we're in this place of responsibility, we are connected, and things are able to flow in a healthier way. Now, if we're in a place of no responsibility, on the other hand, sometimes it's helpful for us to make this distinction between what it looks like and what it's not. When we're not taking responsibility, then it disconnects us from ourselves. It disconnects us from life and the kind of life that we want to be living. And it disconnects us from others. We may be isolating ourselves. We may not be able to step into all of the opportunities that life has for us. So this is at the heart of our whole RTS model, that we each have a choice in stepping into that self-responsibility, and inviting that, and in completing the things that are incomplete in our lives. So that's really at the heart of our requirements in terms of responsibility, and we're going to keep circling back to that concept more and more over the course of this training. So now that brings us to our agreements. And I want to invite us to think about whether or not these are things we can all commit to. Because these are the things that if we each show up in a place of responsibility, will enable us to be successful in our time together. To have the most meaningful and connective and empowering time that we can. So first of all, we ask everyone to be on time. We don't want to start without anyone, because there's a lot of really important concepts that will build on one another over the course of our training. And so we don't want to leave anyone out of that. And so we want to invite everyone to be here on time, to return from our breaks on time, and to show up ready to be present and to participate in our programming. Part of that showing up in a way where we can be really meaningfully present means that we're going to commit to not having substances in our system over the course of our training. So that means we're not going to be doing any drugs, whether they're legal or illegal, marijuana, etc. We're also not going to be consuming alcohol, because it alters our state of consciousness and it affects our ability to be present. These are things that can numb us out to the spirit of who we are, and that can cover over and block us from being able to do the work, the deep work that is really healing and empowering. We're also each on our own journey. And so in order for this to be the most meaningful and empowering experience, it's not about comparing our journey or our experiences or our answers to other people's. We're each on our own individual journey, even as we're holding space for one another in our learning. So this comes back to now being responsible for yourself, making sure that you have the materials that you need, making sure that you're communicating if you have dietary needs, because we want to make sure everyone's nourished here, making sure that if we're giving homework, which may happen, that you are taking responsibility for doing that, so you're showing up ready to learn. You're tending to all the other pieces in your life so that you can be fully present here with us. And that brings me to the next one of doing your homework. We're also going to invite a respectful cell phone use policy. So in order to be fully present, it's really important that folks are not on cell phones as we're going through the training itself. You can use your cell phones during your breaks. We'd invite everyone to have them on silent. If there's something that's really urgent, say a family member's in the hospital, or there's an emergency response that you might need to be present for with work, and that's part of your commitments as part of being here, was that you had to be accountable for that, please communicate that to our training team, and we'll make sure that we can facilitate access in the ways that will be most important, and at the same time invite you to be as fully participating as you can be. And then finally, I've sort of mentioned this a lot, but we want to create a safe container for all. Oftentimes we talk about how, we cannot promise that everyone is going to hold all of this in confidence. At the same time, we want to invite you to be responsible for your own stories, but recognize when they're not your stories to share. And so we're not here to be talking about what other people are sharing in this experience. We're inviting you to be in integrity with this work, and to show up to do your own work, and not to be comparing or to be talking about what other people's work is. And that helps us to create a sense of safety so that we can go deeper together, and that people will feel comfortable sharing what is most meaningful and sometimes what is a little bit tender. So this is what we are asking for in terms of training agreements. Are there any questions with this? Are there any other things that people think should be here? Or does this feel good? Is there anything else that you have a challenge with? Let's have a discussion about it. Awesome. Thank you so much for your sharing. So, want to invite you to get out your invisible pens. And if you agree to the training agreements, I want you to sign it with your invisible ink. And that's your way of actively committing to this together. Thank you. So that leads us into some of the core work that we're now going to do together. Thank you.